You don't have the tools in your toolbox to do that. They didn't say that. Now, I didn't have a lot of the tools in my toolbox. And so I had to be creative along the way to use other tools to make things happen, think outside the box. And I think, well, ask a lot of questions, finding mentors along the way to help me in those initial years, months and years of being an assistant professor.
Voices with value, stories with soul, tools for transformation. This is Innovation Insights. Innovate so you do not stagnate.
Welcome to another episode of Innovation Insights, where we dive deep into the minds shaping the future of industries through innovation, creativity, and groundbreaking research. We believe that innovation happens in all aspects of life. I am your host, Dr. Eulanda Sanders. Today's guest is a true innovator in the world of food science, research, and mentorship. We are honored to welcome Dr. Stephanie Clark, with over 30 years of experience in dairy chemistry, microbiology, processing, and sensory evaluation. Dr. Clark has shaped the field of dairy science and mentored the next generation of food scientists.
Stephanie is the manager of academic engagement of the American Dairy Products Institute, founder of First Impression, a food science editorial and oral presentations consulting service, and the former founder of the Iowa State University Creamery. Her contributions extend far beyond the laboratory. Dr. Clark has authored or co-authored over 95 peer-reviewed journal articles and 22 book chapters, has reviewed more than 300 manuscripts, has served on the editorial boards of leading journals, and has mentored 80 graduate students through MS and PhD programs. Her editorial expertise is also unmatched, offering professional manuscript editing services that elevate scientific writing with precision, clarity, and insight. Whether she is leading innovative research, developing new dairy products, or guiding students and professionals through the complexities of scientific communication, Dr. Clark brings depth, excellence, and integrity to everything she touches. Please join me in welcoming the brilliant and inspiring Dr. Stephanie Clark to the Innovation Insights podcast.
Stephanie, welcome to the Innovation Insights podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Dr. Sanders, thank you so much for thinking of bringing me onto your program to be included as one of your innovators.
Dr. Stephanie, please just call me Yolanda. Oh my goodness. We've known each other now for like maybe 13 years or so. It's been a long
Give or
time.
take. That would be, yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. I was fortunate
Back at Iowa State, when I was there, we were in the same college. And I guess most of our interaction would have been related to the creamery and hopefully coming on over and enjoying some of our ice cream.
Yeah. We both held endowed professorships at the same time too at Iowa State. And so yeah, we also crossed over with some of that. So that felt fun.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, thank you. And I know that you've been an important mentor to many people within the discipline and at Iowa State. And one of our other guests on the podcast, Dr. Shannon Coleman, she thinks the world of you. And yeah, thank you for all that you have done. And
Thank you. Well, that's the best part, I think, of being on faculty is that mentoring piece. I just love working with students and faculty, whether they're junior or senior, just starting out, thinking of maybe going into the field, helping them decide whether it is the right place for them. That's always fun also, because heck, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I needed mentors. And so I like being on the other side of that now, where I can actually provide a little bit of wisdom. I don't have all the answers for sure, but exploring it with the next generation, it feels good. It's satisfying.
well, you're very good at it. You're very good.
Thank you.
Well, do tell us a little bit about your journey. What initially drew you to food science and particularly specializing in dairy?
Sure. Well, it is kind of circuitous because I grew up on a small farm in Massachusetts, and I was in 4-H, and that was a great way to learn about leadership and responsibility and public speaking and innovating. And I actually didn't know that food science was an option. I originally wanted to be a vet and save all the animals. That was very naive, of course. And I went into animal science as an undergraduate and started and completed an animal science bachelor's degree. But partway through that, I realized I want to do research. Somehow I heard about undergraduate research as an option, and so I went to my animal science advisor and I said, "Can I do some undergraduate research on goat milk?" Because I'd grown up with dairy goats. I got my first goat when I was 7 years old, and I was making cheese with the milk and creating new things with the milk. So I wanted to study the milk. And she said, "Oh, we don't work with animal products. We work with animals. You need to go over to food science." And so that's how I discovered food science. It was by mistake. And I think what I've learned through the years is a lot of people discover food science by mistake, and I'm so glad that I did. I really my first class was milk and frozen desserts, and I realized that I could be creative in food science, and that's when I fell in love with it. I said, "Oh, this is what I wanna do." So I got to do research and then also be creative at the same time. So create things with food, but not just cooking. It was food that would be for a large audience. So it's food that's meant to be refrigerated or frozen or stored for a period of time, distributed long distances, so not just in a kitchen. So I didn't know it existed, and then fell in love with it and got my master's and PhD in food science. That's how it all kinda came to be, to the graduate school and so on. And then, as far as how did I go from there? Well, I didn't know when I graduated, like many students, I didn't know what I would get a job in. I knew I liked teaching. I had discovered along the way that I did like teaching. For my when I was doing my PhD, one of my minors was education, and then I applied to be a postdoc. I applied to be a faculty member, and I applied to work in industry. So to be a food scientist in industry or to be a postdoc to maybe someday either go into industry or go into academia. And then I found a position at Washington State University that was to go directly into academia as an assistant professor. And of all things, I got invited to be an assistant professor at Washington State University. So that was my first job right out without getting a postdoc. So that was a big step. A lot of people in our field in food science, they will do a postdoc. And now Shannon Coleman, Dr. Coleman, she also went directly in like I did, but a lot of our peers, a lot of the people before us have done a postdoc first. So both of us had I guess as they say, a steep learning curve.
Yeah. It really speaks to
Mhm.
your background. And so
Well,
I love
yeah, the mentors I had, the training I had and the mentors I had. Yeah, sure, sure. Definitely. They
Mhm.
helped me have the confidence to try. They didn't say, "Oh, no, nobody does that. Don't apply to be a professor yet. No, 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 no. You don't have the tools in your toolbox to do that." They didn't say that. Now, I didn't have a lot of the tools in my toolbox, and so I had to be creative along the way to to use other tools to make things happen,
Yeah.
think outside the box, and I think, well, ask a lot of questions. Finding mentors along the way to help me in those initial years, months and years of being an assistant professor. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. You mentioned 4-H, and I did not realize
Yeah.
you're a 4-H'er too. I was a 4-H and a lot of
Mhm.
4-H.
Good for you. What was your main project?
Leadership, photography, yes, textiles and clothing, food science and human nutrition. Actually, that's the
Really?
well, yes, food science was what I actually went to National 4-H Congress in
Oh my
by
gosh.
Kellogg. And so I had thought about pursuing that area. So I did creative cooks in Colorado. We had that, I think champion in foods and things like that. So I was very, very much involved in foods, but also textiles and knitting, crocheting, leadership, as I mentioned.
Yeah, we didn't have food science as an option. So if we had, I would have learned about it earlier.
Yeah.
And who knows where our lives would have gone if we'd chosen, you'll never know.
No.
But I mean, it turned out fine. But it is interesting how Colorado had the food science, but Massachusetts didn't.
Yeah, that is really
Interesting.
interesting. It is very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
God. We're connected in more ways than we realize. And it took this podcast for us to figure that out.
well, that's one thing I find with people is that we're much more connected than most of the time we realize. And we
And we don't
often have,
necessarily have those conversations. That's part of it. When we were at Iowa State, it was all about getting the job done
yeah,
and not as much of the social time as well should have been. I mean, we should have taken some time to get to know each other better.
we should have.
Only now we are.
Well, I do want to talk about your time at Iowa State and the Iowa State University Creamery because you did a lot of work with that. So tell us about that and the impact of it.
Yeah. Well, Iowa State had a long history of dairy science. So back 1881 was when they had their very, very first creamery. And then they had several new buildings, new creameries along the way in the 1900s and so on. And actually, the food sciences building, the building that houses food science now, was built in 1927. And that building had a lot of research and food science, dairy food science done. They processed a number of dairy products in that building from 1927 until about 1969, and then it shut down. It actually shut down in 1969, largely because there was a big change in agriculture in Iowa. It became very, very, well, big on hogs and corn and poultry, and less so on dairy. And also the food science programs around the country, many, many places, it became very general rather than very specific to a certain commodity. So again, less and less about dairy. So, well, okay. And then one more thing was around the region, some dairies were struggling. And so, as a courtesy, the ISU Creamery shut down just to reduce the amount of potential competition.
Mm.
Well, in the meantime, I was getting educated in food science in my undergraduate college, where I also did my master's and PhD. They had a creamery, a dairy and a creamery right there. And so I was able to work there as an undergraduate. I researched and I also worked in the creamery. So I got great hands-on training. Then my first job at Washington State University also had a creamery where I conducted research, advised students, and taught classes and short courses. And so I was in an environment that had a functioning commercial creamery. So when I got to Iowa State, it was a big loss. It was a piece of me was missing in a way because I love making dairy products. I love teaching about dairy products in an environment where they can get hands-on experience. Because I think that's the best. Remember, learn by doing from 4-H?
Absolutely.
That's wh- that's how I run. That's how I roll. Absolutely. I thought we've got to get a creamery up and running at Iowa State University. So it took about 7 years for that process to get to the point where we could actually open up the creamery, largely because there was pressure in the state to not have a creamery at a university, at Iowa State University, because the perception of unfair competition. So I'm going to say perception because it was perceived that we would have all this free student labor. Oh, no, 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 no. Students are not free. Students are not free. We paid our students, the ISU Creamery still pays them a fair wage, and they're learning. They make mistakes. So do we. Adults also make mistakes, but students, they've got to make mistakes to learn from them. And so you don't make money at a university creamery. It's also very small. It's a real challenge to, well, make ends meet to break even. And so that argument was there, even though it wasn't a reality. I had to fight that. I also needed to write a business plan and justify budget and so forth, hire people, train people, acquire equipment, get contracts with vendors and so forth. So there are a lot of things that you have to do to be prepared, get licensed. You have to be inspected by the state and so forth. So a number of things had to be done, but the hardest part was really convincing people that we needed one, that students would benefit, that the dairy industry at large would benefit. And that was really what I needed to show them. I needed to show them that I wasn't just passing by also. So through the years, I demonstrated that I cared about the dairy industry in Iowa. So I started up the Iowa Quality Dairy Products Showcase at the Iowa State Fair, where we have the annual judging for the dairy products made in Iowa. So started that up. We display the winning dairy products made in Iowa next to the butter cow. So people wait in line to see the butter cow and they see all the beautiful dairy products that are made in Iowa. So that was a big part of it. And then being a kind of a consultant, answering questions, just always being ready to answer questions of dairy product processors in Iowa was really important to demonstrate that I cared that everybody succeed. Because if one dairy producer in Iowa fails, the whole industry is hurt. If somebody gets sick or if somebody has a bad dairy experience, it looks bad for the whole dairy industry. So we want everybody to succeed. It's not a competition. Even though I know there is competition in the world of food, like Pepsi and Coke, right? They're competing, but they don't really want to see one or the other fail because it does hurt the whole industry. One bad apple spoils the whole batch.
Yeah, that's so true. So true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we were all ready to open. Actually, there are a couple other things because we're talking about innovation. So I just want to mention a couple of things. One of the things that we did at the creamery was um, have a contest before we even started up. The signature ISU signature ice cream contest. Okay, so we started up with that contest in 2017 because we wanted to get people aware that this creamery was going to come. So we invited people, alumni, faculty, staff, students. They had to have a connection to Iowa State, and the goal was tell us a story. Now I know you value storytelling. So here's what we said. Make a video, tell us a story, tell us why your concept for the signature ice cream of Iowa State University is the one. Tell us why this ice cream encapsulates the ISU story. So we launched this contest and there were entries. I had folks from the industry, some Iowa State folks and some folks from the ice cream industry judge the entries. And then we picked the top winner that really told the story. So they had to make a video. So that was really fun. They had to make a video of this and describe the product. And their product is now today still available. Our very first ice cream called Legacy. Now we wanted to call it Legacy because Psy, as you know, but many of your listeners may not know, Psy is the mascot of Iowa State University. Psy is a cardinal because the cardinals fly freely in the region, but he's also a tornado. He's kind of a tornado flash cardinal, kind of encapsulated in one. And so Legacy is honoring a couple legacies. One of them, Mildred Day, was one of the creators. She was a food scientist. She was one of the creators of the Rice Krispies treats.
Yeah.
And then George Washington Carver was also one of the alumni of Iowa State University, who did many, 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 many innovations, famous for many, many reasons. Uh, But one of the things that he is known for is his research on peanuts. Now, he didn't do that work at Iowa State, but these students put together those two concepts. And the concept is a scotcheroo ice cream. And again, many of your listeners might not know what a scotcheroo is, but they're delicious. I didn't know what they were until I got to Iowa. It's a butterscotch Rice Krispies treat. So peanut butterscotch Rice Krispies treat with chocolate on top. We made an ice cream that's butterscotch and peanut butter based ice cream with chocolate covered Rice Crisps throughout the ice cream. Still to this day, among my most favorite ice creams. So that was our very first. And what we did is we went around campus and we gave away free samples because we needed to sell this idea of a creamery. And I was state, and I think you were one of the people that we shared it with, because we really wanted people to want it, want our product, want the creamery. So we were gonna open up in April of 2020 with 6 flavors. You're laughing because you know what happened. March, we all went home at spring break and did not return. So our creamery, our dream to start up our creamery with our 6 brand new flavors of ice cream, we couldn't open the doors. So we got everything in order. We still paid our students. We made inventory, basically, because we were still meeting. Some of us were still on campus. So those who were there, we wore our masks and we made ice cream. We continued to innovate. And the other thing that we did, again, this is about innovation. That's why I'm talking so much about the creamery. We did a lot of innovating then and still do. Because COVID was so overwhelming and life-changing for so many of us, I thought it would be fun to have another contest. And this particular contest, several years after that first one that we did, because now it's 2020, it's 3 years later. Uh, Ice cream flavors of Iowa State. Wait, the Iowa State College Ice cream flavors of Iowa State colleges contest. So in this particular one, we invited alumni, faculty, staff, and students to, they didn't have to do a video, but they had to describe what was the flavor that would describe their college. So we had 8 colleges, right? We had College of Design, College of Agriculture, College of Human Sciences, et cetera, engineering, et cetera, veterinary. And so we requested people enter their concepts. They didn't have to make them. They just had to describe them really well. And again, we had judges from campus and around the industry to judge, and we picked the 8 top products. We created those products, so we had to reformulate a few things to make those products. Uh, and so in the fall, when we opened in August, we ultimately opened our doors in August 2020, and we had the 6-foot social distancing, and people came and bought scoops of ice cream. At that time, we only released our six flavors. So your basic strawberry and dark chocolate, and we had cardinal tracks and Winter's Green, which is honoring our first woman president, Dr. Wendy Winterstein. So yes, we had those 6 flavors because we hadn't finished formulating all of our brand new flavors. But by October, we had all of our eight additional flavors formulated and ready to go. And the faculty, staff, students, and alumni who created those each got to take some home. They won pints that they got to take home to taste their concept that was ultimately produced. So it was really, really amazing, really, really special. And those were our core flavors for many months until we decided to develop some more. And now they're about 25 flavors at the creamery.
Well, thank you for
Welcome.
sharing that. Yeah.
Sure. I know it's a lot on one topic and you have other questions.
Oh, no. It was really a great project. And, I was very familiar with it because I was involved with helping open up some other facilities on campus at that time. And one of those facilities is later on sold some of the,
Featuring
yeah,
the creamery
yeah,
ice cream.
did a fantastic job with that.
Thank you. I'm very, very proud of the team of people that were involved in that. And
Absolutely.
another thing about it was largely women, and I think it's partly because they saw women leadership.
Mhm,
Maybe that's partly why other women were drawn to working at the creamery.
mhm,
I think fondly back to some of the historical pieces that we would show in the creamery store, which we they may still have those pictures up on the wall. The 1939 staff at the ISU Creamery were all men, all white men, all
mhm,
white men. So, in contrast, we had a picture of our staff, which was largely women, not entirely, all different shapes, sizes, colors, and affiliations. Just fantastic to see. Just the contrast of yesterday and today, and I feel really proud about that.
well, that is something to be very proud of. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about your work as a researcher too, because you have published over 95 peer-reviewed journal articles. And, what topics are you most proud of?
Sure. Well, early work was with goat milk because that's what I did my master's and PhD on. And those were, that's where I started. I started 7 years old, my first dairy goat. So that was pretty meaningful. And so, um, back, I think this was also maybe 2017-ish, I was invited to write a 100-year perspective on goat milk. And that was really fun to do. So it's a literature review, and there it's a pretty highly cited, lit reviews get highly cited. So that's a pretty highly cited paper. So it feels good to start as a child in something and to still be considered. I hate to use the expert because I know there are people that know more than me, but I guess I am considered an expert in the field of dairy goat milk and cheese. And so it's pretty cool to have that legacy. I feel good about some other research as well. It's pretty wide ranging. Some of the work that I've done has been with cows themselves. And I will say, even though I started with goats, most of the money, grant money, because we rely on grant money to do research. Okay. So most of the grant money isn't available for goat milk research. Okay. So that's why most of my manuscripts are actually related to research on cow milk. Some of the work was when I got to Iowa, there was a problem with some milk quality issues and some cheese quality issues that they couldn't figure out. Ooh, this is like a CSI opportunity. I can do some research and try to solve this problem, figure out what's going on. And so that was a fun series of projects where we fed what is a byproduct of the ethanol industry. So pretty huge industry in Iowa, right? Because we grow corn and we feed the corn to the cows, or we feed the corn stalks in many cases, and we also feed the dried distillers grains, which are a byproduct of the ethanol industry. So the cows eat a lot of scrap food that are byproducts that humans don't use. And there was a concern that these distillers grains were causing these defects in the milk and the cheese. And so we did a series of studies where we were feeding the cows, measuring the feed that they were eating. We were controlling how much they were getting of the distillers' dried grains. So one study was looking at the milk itself, and then two other studies were looking at the cheese made from the milk. So quite a series of work to show that it wasn't the distillers' grains, which is a good discovery for the industry, because if it had been, then who's gonna use it? Now they do use it in hogs. They do feed hogs that that byproduct, but, Hogs are only part of the industry that can use them. So that was a big one. That learning that was important and meaningful. So I feel good about that. Just a couple of examples.
That's great. That's great. And also, part of your work has also been in sensory evaluation. But first, would you tell our audience what that is, and then what the process of doing that and how important it is for product development?
Oh, sure, sure. Um, think of it this way. If somebody buys your product, regardless of what it is, a blouse, a granola bar, a piece of software, they buy it once and they're not satisfied, they're not going to buy it again, right? They're not going to go back. They're not going to trust your brand potentially. You need to deliver, right? You have to communicate clearly what it is, make it clear what the deliverable is, and actually deliver on it. Right? So sensory evaluation is one of the ways we do that. We can do trained panels or we can do consumer panels. So trained panels are ones where we train people to evaluate for certain characteristics. So for instance, right now I'm doing a research project at New Mexico State University with some undergraduate students. So it goes full circle, right? I started doing undergraduate research and now I'm mentoring undergraduates as well. And this particular project, we have formulated ice creams, 2 different formulations, and we are training some people that are ultimately going to be considered experts on how to evaluate some very specific quality characteristics of these ice creams. So for instance, ice crystals, sandiness, the melt rate, the density of the ice cream. Those are just a few examples. So how dense or fluffy. So if it's really, 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 really dense, not much air incorporated in, or very, very light and fluffy would be an example of two sides of the spectrum. So that's just one example. So we train about a dozen attributes and train them on the levels or the intensities of those attributes. We train them with very specific anchors so they become experts on evaluating quality. So this particular study, why is it being done? I mean, isn't ice cream all wonderful? Not always. This particular study is being done because globally, there's this incentive now to change the frozen storage temperature by 3 degrees. So historically, since way back with Birdseye, way back, you've heard of Birdseye Foods? Well, Clarence Birdseye suggested the storage temperature 0 degrees, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 18 degrees Celsius. He suggested that as the global temperature of frozen storage, basically. And since he was the expert on frozen foods, it has become and has been the global standard for decades and decades. Research has shown from an environmental standpoint, from a sustainability standpoint. So if the research has shown that if the temperature is increased to minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, that 3 degrees change can make a difference economically and environmentally as far as the cost of refrigeration. So global energy cost can make a difference. Okay, we spend a lot of money on keeping things cold. So some research has been done on peas and frozen fish and frozen chicken patties, but they hadn't done any research on ice cream and the impact of this 3 degrees of change on the quality of ice cream. Remember what I said, if somebody has a bad sensory experience, they may not buy the product again and it can ruin your brand. Have you ever had the drumstick ice cream cones with a soggy drumstick cone? Terrible, right? Okay. So that's an example. if you've ever had ice cream that's just terribly, terribly cold and it gives you brain freeze and it really hurts and it's kind of crunchy because the ice crystals in there, that's not
Mhm.
so pleasant and maybe you'll go to a different brand. So that's why we're doing this research because we want to see if the impact on ice cream is negative enough that people will actually reject ice cream products because the quality is significantly deteriorated at a faster rate. So we're essentially doing a shelf life study with trained panelists, people who can sense the differences, small differences, and can help us to track that over time. So we'll be having sensors in the ice cream will be so we have these different formulations. We also have different storage fluctuations and at the two different temperatures over several months. So we're looking at how does it change and does it change to a point where these products are going to be rejected, that companies are going to be ending up throwing away product because that has a negative global impact as well. Right? So
Absolutely.
refrigeration and freezing can have a negative global impact, but so can food waste.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the point behind this current research that we're doing, which involves
Important.
sensory. So hopefully that explains to you why sensory can be pretty relevant in product development and product quality evaluation over time.
Yeah. Oh, that makes absolute sense. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
There's many parallels to, product development. And I think people sometimes don't think about product development in the food area. They think of it as, industrial design, apparel, fashion design, those types of products.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And sensory is an important part of all products.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'll give you one more example. So this past 9 months, I've been working with a team of students at NMSU, New Mexico State University, on developing a product for a competition. So they entered a competition called the Dairy Management Incorporated New Product Contest. And these students from around the country were invited to enter concepts for dairy products that are beneficial to heart health and weight management. So the contest was specifically for weight management and heart health, and they had to use at least 51% dairy ingredients, and it had to be at least 10% of the daily value of protein. So a good source of protein. So this team of students, they decided, oh, we're going to enter, and they created what they call nuestro corazón. So it's little heart-shaped crackers made with mozzarella cheese or cheddar cheese. So they made two different types of crackers. And to go along with those, they made dips. And the dips are Greek yogurt based dips. And they were Latino inspired flavors. So they made a harissa, a chimichurri, a dulce de leche, and a bizcocho flavored. Fantastic. So they spent many months on this, many hours of working in the kitchen to create these. So they had to work on paper to create the formulations. They had to work in the kitchen to actually make it happen. How thin do they need to make those cooked crackers so that they're how much of the cheese versus the whey protein concentrate versus the skim milk versus whatever, right? They had to make their yogurt, so they had to use the right formulation there, the right bacteria for that, etc. Right? But they also had to do sensory evaluation with the Latino population to make sure that it actually was appealing to their target audience. You have to consider the target audience, right? So they brought in consumers. So that's different than a trained panel. A consumer panel is how much do you like or dislike this product? And that went very well, actually, that people liked it. So that's great.
Quality.
But
Fabulous.
there are many aspects, many aspects. They had to do nutrition facts panel and things like that too. They had to do a lot of market research to make sure that their product would fit in the market. So all of those are part of food science. And then the sensory is just one piece of many, many things that are involved in it.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I love that innovation process so much.
Well, and the product just sounds amazing. So I hope it gets to market someday, some year.
Oh, well, okay. So that's the thing. It was a contest, right?
Uh-huh.
And they actually gradually worked their way up from being one of like 24 entries to being in the top 6 to being in the top 3. And they actually did win first place in the national contest.
Wonderful.
They actually did. Yeah. Whether it goes to market or not, though, that's harder because you gotta have a champion. You've got to have somebody that says, I want to make a company out of this. I want to actually really turn this into a business.
Mhm.
And these are all students. They had other career aspirations. So 2 of the students from the team they were master's students. They've decided to go on for PhDs, which is very cool. And they're doing it specifically in dairy food science. So I'm so thrilled that they're doing that. And then there are 3 undergraduate students, and they haven't fully decided what they're doing next. They haven't graduated yet, but
Yeah.
we'll see what they do. But hopefully they're going to do dairy food science for a career. And that's part of why it's so important to me to continue to be a mentor to these teams, because it hopefully inspires them to maybe go into dairy foods, but at least to decide whether they do or don't like it, because maybe they realize, oh, wow, that is so much not me. That after all that, they may realize, no, that's not me. That's important. Helping them make decisions along the way. But of course, I do want them to go that direction. We'll see.
Well, they have a great mentor in you. So I want to talk a little bit more about your mentorship and then also innovations that you have undertaken because you've started a consulting business named First Impressions, correct? Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about that. And, it relates to, one, your mentorship, but then also your expertise in editorial work and publishing work.
Sure. Okay. So when I left Iowa State University largely I left because it was my spouse's turn to follow what he wanted to do. There are times in life where it's kind of all about you, and there are times when you need to really think about another person. It was his turn because he followed me there, so I followed him down here. Anyway, so when I retired from Iowa State because I'd been there long enough that I could. So I'm not fully retired because I still work, but I was able to retire, which enables me to still have access to the library, which was the main reason why I decided to retire from Iowa State, because I wanted to be able to keep my email address and keep my access to the Iowa State University library system, which is fantastic. So I had some time, more time than I had in the past, to review literature. So whenever I got a request to be a peer reviewer on an article for foods or for Journal of Dairy Science or for the International Dairy Journal or for Journal of Sensory Studies or whatever, there are tons. There are many, many, many journals out there. I get invited, and most of the time I'd say yes because I had more time to do it and I wanted to stay current. I wanted to continue to know the science. I'm sorry to say, a lot of what I read was really poorly written. And I gave lots and lots and lots of feedback. Hopefully, they took it to heart and improved the papers, but many times I suggested rejection. So, as a peer reviewer, you can reject, suggest major revisions, suggest minor revision, or accept. And those are roughly the categories, roughly. And a lot of them, it was reject or major revision. And I realized I'd love to help these people before they get to this point, because the first impression I got from many of those papers was, oh, this is not looking good. I'd read the abstract and I already know this is going to take me a lot of time to go through. And I'd spend hours and hours on it. So that's when I decided I've got to start this small business and help people do better. Before they submit it for peer review and get someone all ticked off, get some reviewer ticked off and take hours and hours of their time, pay for my time, and I will give you the tough review that you can fix. and then you submit it for peer review, and you can probably submit to a higher tier journal and get better feedback to make it even better. And then the science that's going out there is better overall. We just take it all up a notch. That's why I started First Impressions. The other reason was because I love helping people get better with their public speaking.
Mm.
And I also like mentoring people to help them advance their careers. So I thought, okay, we'll have the three tiers. We'll have the editing, proofreading side, we'll have the oral presentation side, and then we'll have the career development side.
Excellent. Excellent. It's good and it's important. And it's really wonderful that you're offering, those three tiers or those three pillars because faculty, graduate students, they really do need that extra support. And sometimes they're not getting it within their programs or within their institutions. And faculty, one, are so busy, have so many things to do, so they're not able to sometimes support their students that way.
Yeah. Yes, and sometimes they need a career change and they don't necessarily want everyone to know about it. And so they can't go on campus and ask for mentoring because maybe the word will get out, so they can go to somebody confidential.
Mhm. That's great. And that's great that you mentioned the confidentiality part of it too. Thank you. And we'll make sure that we have links to your consulting business, the show notes and everything too, so people can get a hold of.
Mainly I work with food science work, but it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. As you know, I was in the College of Human Sciences, now renamed. I know it's renamed now. Health and Human Sciences. My department was food science, human nutrition, and we had nursing. I would review materials from people, huge wide range. I was on faculty review in the College of Human Sciences, so I would see pieces of work from your department, from a variety of departments, education department or school of education. So a whole range, not just food science. So I can review other work. It doesn't have to be science work. Even though my page is professional development for food scientists. If any of your listeners need help, have them reach out to me. Because what I do is I look at what their request is and I will be outright honest with them. If it's totally something I have no clue about and I don't think I can be much help, I would let them know right away.
Mhm.
It's better for them to reach out if they do
Yeah.
need some coaching in some way. But I know you do that too, so they've got you.
There's so much opportunity to support people. And so thank you for doing that because
They're welcome.
people need support.
We
Oh,
had those who supported us. We're just coming back around again.
absolutely.
Giving back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I still have people supporting me. Thank goodness. I still have a great team of centers. So thinking about leadership and leadership within science, what does that mean to you? Leadership in the field of science, and especially as a woman in science. Oof.
Now you're getting to those tough questions. When I think back to my approach, I'm a questioner. I think largely I'm a questioner, which I have learned in recent years does not always work for people. Yeah, and that's kids laugh. Yeah, they think I'm questioning their ability, which I'm not necessarily. I'm trying to get them to think ahead and explain their reasoning for things, not because I doubt them so much as I wanna help build on their knowledge. I so value learning. I like to teach the why behind stuff. So whenever I was training in the creamery, it was teaching. It was teaching. It wasn't just follow me. Here's how you clean something. Here's why we have to clean this way. This is how we take it apart. And this is why we have to do it with such care because these gaskets, if they crack, the microorganisms get right in here. And we have got to make sure we are looking carefully every single time we take this apart. Because if there is a crack or a crevice, they can create a biofilm. Yeah, I always go back to why? Why? And that's why I ask so many questions. So I lead by teaching and questioning. I don't know if that answers your question.
I love that you're talking about why. And it's funny because over the last week, I've been working on a series of YouTube videos that will be the why of certain things or why we do things at Innovation Insights and just why. And that has been something too. But when I started Innovation Insights, I had some why videos, like why Innovation Insights. That why, that question, it's so powerful. So thank you for bringing that up.
I'm glad to be validated in that because again, in recent years, there's sometimes some sensitivity to asking those questions. I'm glad to hear validation about it.
Yeah. Well, like we sometimes our environments, we talk the talk of like, oh, there's no dumb questions, there's no bad questions. Oh, you're encouraged to answer questions. But then sometimes when you do ask questions, it's not appreciated. And so I hope that as humans, we start to embrace
Show more
questions.
grace. Oh,
Yeah.
embrace question. Yeah.
Yeah, embrace, yeah, and grace. A lot of grace and embracing questions. I would love for both of those things to start happening more.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But and so thinking about trends and emerging technologies and innovations in food science and dairy science, what do you speculate happening?
Oh, yeah. Well, protein is king right now, and it has been for a pretty good amount of time, and it continues to be. And I think that is going to be for a good long time. And you know about GLP-1 drugs, right? Those are the very, very commonly taken with diabetes or weight loss, intentions for weight loss or to manage diabetes. Well, that's another reason why protein is not going away as a priority. We need to have nutrient dense food es- for all of us, but especially for people who are controlling their hunger pangs with the help of GLP-1 drugs, right? So they need to get nutritionally dense food when they eat. They can't just eat filler. So dairy products are good, excellent source of protein and other nutrients. 13 essential nutrients in dairy naturally without having to add them. And so dairy, I think, is going to become a bigger component of many foods that we eat. And their clean label, I mean, people recognize milk, cheese, yogurt. They recognize those words. So they're approachable. So I think we're going to continue to see protein as important and nutrient dense, like whole foods. The importance of the whole food matrix, yogurt, the whole yogurt item is good for you. And more people are going to be going to that because of that.
Yeah.
Because it delivers. And we're going to use it. We're going to do it in more interesting forms, unique forms. So way back, so this was probably 2003, I had a food product development team that I was advising at Washington State University, and they developed a product called Yove, and Yove was vegetable vegetable flavored yogurt. So they were dairy yogurts, but they had harvest squash. So this was like a butternut squash, pumpkin squash kind of. So it wasn't a sweet flavor. It was a savory yogurt. So wouldn't be surprised if we see some of those products because we were ahead of that team was ahead of its time. So Yove was ahead of its time. There was one, oh, it was delightful. It was a beet. I really don't like beets, but this was a beet based. So it was yogurt. It was real yogurt, not a almond based or oat based. Real yogurt with beets. And the beets gave it such a beautiful color naturally. And then you get the additional nutrients from the beets. So not only the beautiful color, but the additional nutrients and flavor of the beets, but not to the yucky point where you taste earth and beets and they did a great job. So can potentially see products like that in the future. Like I said, we were ahead of our time way back then. But it's time now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's exciting.
You heard it first here.
Yeah. From my, way back when over, ooh, gosh, over 40 some years 4-H experience. 'Cause I started with food nutrition was my first project.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like 8 or 9 years old then. Okay, let's say about 50 years ago then.
I'm
Yeah, and
years have run fast.
it went very fast. Yeah, but yeah, thinking about the food groups and what I loved about was that creativity and that innovation. So I love that you're talking about different ways of dairy and yogurt and savory yogurts versus sweet ones that we often see and um the importance of protein. I have an 81-year-old who was my 4-H leader for foods who yes, she's my roommate too. So I'm very fortunate to have her here. And so she was mentioning to me a few months ago, was like, I want, more protein in the morning for breakfast. I'm like, yeah, I need more protein. I'm like, you're right. So getting those eggs or getting, yeah.
That's another thing that I did when I retired. We got some chicks. So now
Oh,
we have eggs every day.
oh, that's
Back to
fabulous.
my roots. I'm a farm kid.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Oh my goodness. Well, what advice would you give for graduate student, undergrad student, anyone wanting to pursue a career in science and education and innovation? What would your advice be?
Okay, this goes beyond just STEM. Ask questions. Ask, be curious. I have to say, when I was their age, so when I was an undergraduate and graduate student, I did not ask enough because I was afraid of looking dumb.
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you now that I'm on the other side, and I've been on the other side over 30 years, right? So I will tell you, I never think somebody's dumb for asking me a question. Okay? Ask them. I think it's more dumb to not ask and make some really costly mistakes because there are costly mistakes. There definitely are costly mistakes. I'll give you one more sensory story, okay, to help you understand how costly mistakes can be. A costly mistake almost cost a farmer his whole herd of cows. So here's how it goes. When I was at Washington State University, was contacted by a farmer who was having some complaints by customers because the milk was going bad like right away. And his milk had always been great. And I said, okay, I asked through a series of questions because one of the things that I do as a consultant is I ask a lot of questions to try to figure out the problem before having to send product or go visit a facility or whatever. So I ask a lot of questions. So I went through the typical questions that I ask. Did you change their food? Did you change their water source? Et cetera, et cetera. Did any equipment break down? Did you, et cetera? No, 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 no. Okay. What I'd like you to do is send me some of this milk so that I can taste it to determine what the defect is. So there's my sensory evaluation skills, my trained sensory skills. I identified that it was metal oxidized. So metal oxidized is a process that makes the milk taste like, and this is going to sound nasty, but it's going to taste like either it has blood in it or a penny, like coins sitting in the milk. Yucky, right? It's a process that can happen. It can be triggered by a copper bracelet or a piece of copper from a piece of equipment getting into the milk supply, and then it oxidizes, causes a change to the fatty acid structure, which makes it taste like metal, blood, iron, or a copper.
Like,
Uh, we tasted this milk, and it was definitely metal oxidized. So I said, okay, you you sent me product that was in the finished bottle. Now, can you send me product before it gets to the pasteurizer? Can you send me product before it gets to the homogenizer? Can you send me raw product? So I can taste all these products to find out where the problem is happening so that we can figure out if it's an equipment problem or something else. Sure enough, the raw milk was off the charts, incredibly oxidized. So it was happening at the cow. In the meantime, this poor man, his cows had gone off feed and they were not bred. They couldn't be bred. They couldn't get pregnant. Some of them were having foot problems. So what we did is we said, okay, we want you to also send us their feed. We want you to send some of their what they're eating for hay, what they're eating for their grain, their total mixed ration. We want you to send us portions of their food.
Mhm.
So we analyzed this food for various compounds. And we discovered in our analysis that the copper and the iron were 70 and 100 times what they should have been in the feed. So somebody in a laboratory or a facility, a feed facility had done a calculation wrong. Oh, math error. And so that person was poisoning the cows. So much so that they were the ones that still were able to produce milk were producing this oxidized milk that was coming out of them oxidized. And they were all being poisoned because of a math error. Somebody didn't ask a question on how to do the math. They messed up and it almost cost this guy his farm. Once we discovered the problem and they threw away that food, their cows were able to recover.
It's that attention to detail that is so important, asking the questions. One area of research of mine has been over the years has been chaos theory and game theory and all of that area. And this is such a perfect example of how one change has created a chaotic, something that was absolute order. And then this one
Yep.
change just completely, oh my gosh. Thank goodness that they reached out to you and that you were able to help.
Yeah. And that kind of problem solving just makes me feel that's
Absolutely.
proud that we were able to solve that problem and help that farmer save his
Yeah.
cows. Those are my best memories
Yeah.
of problem solving and using the education that I got and asking the right questions and just getting to the root cause. And you can't do that without questions. Cannot
No.
do that without questions. And you have to not be afraid of asking the dumb one. Are some dumb questions? And people will forget that you asked the dumb ones because you're going to ultimately get to the right ones
Correct.
for asking them. Remember that you're not dumb for asking them, but ask them. Ask.
Yes. Yes. Oh, well, thank you for being here. And our last question that we ask every guest is, how do you define innovation?
Oh my goodness. I should have known this because you've asked others. Yes. Creativity, thinking outside the box really is taking it to the next level.
That's fabulous.
So it's all that wrapped into one, right? It's a new twist on something, seeing something in a new way and running with it. Love it. Taking chances. It's so many things. It's so many things, Yolanda. Taking chances, being creative, and running with it.
Oh, thank you. That's a great definition.
You should do a word cloud of all the answers that you get from people because you're getting so many different ones, and then put it in a word cloud and share it back because
That is in the word. And then plus we have a series of clips for each person, their definition that goes out of defining innovation too. So that will be highlighted. Your definition will be highlighted too. So yeah. Yeah. These conversations, there's so many incredible gems that come from them. And so appreciate you being here.
again, thanks for thinking of me. I thought, why is she asking me? Why is she going to the bottom of the barrel? Darn it. It felt like I didn't have much to contribute, but you pulled it out of me. Good job.
Felt like I was going for the cream at the top of the barrel. Pun intended. Fascinating. Fascinating.
Well,
Well,
thanks. This has been a pleasure.
we really have had a wonderful
Absolutely.
conversation with Dr. Clark. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, comment on the podcast. It helps us to continue to bring impactful conversations like this to you. Stay connected with us on all of our social media platforms and visit us at innovation-and-insights.com for more resources, upcoming episodes, and ways to engage with the Innovation Insights community. So thank you for tuning in. Keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference.